let's take Judaism and Jews and Israel. If you go to Quran base, you will find more stories about Moses and the children of Israel and the Holy Land, more so than Muhammad and his family. Because the whole Quran is pretty much based on the story of Moses and some part Jesus. And, you know, in our own holy book, chapter 5, verses 20-21, which no Muslim scholar ever talk about it, chapter 5, verses 20-21 repeats what Moses said. Moses is telling his people, enter the holy land in which Allah assigned unto you, meaning that the holy land belonged to the people of Moses, to the Jewish people. And this is our own holy book. So, and many, many other things that if we follow it, then there was no problem about it. The second thing also on that vein, and I'm sure this is the most controversial of them all, and I hope that they're not going to come to the bonus and get me. They call the Masjid Aqsa, the Haram Sharif, the third holiest mosque in Islam. I mean, how could that be? Number one, in Medina, you have the first mosque in Medina called Masjid Baqi. Even before the Prophet's big mosque, there was a mosque called Masjid Baqi, the first one. They ignore that. The second thing is, before Muhammad and his followers went to Medina, Hijrah, whatever, guess where they went? To Africa, Abyssinia. 5 years after Muhammad declared his prophecy, they couldn't stand him, whatever. He said, you know what? In order for us to be safe, we got to go to safe kingdom, Abyssinia. They went there. When they went there, what they did? Build a mosque. How could that mosque be less important than Masjid Aqsa? Masjid Aqsa did not exist during the lifetime of Muhammad.
But my understanding is that the Al-Aqsa Mosque was where the rock where the story is that Muhammad ties his donkey and then ascends to heaven, right? Is that and this is my understanding from an outside.
That's what Muslims understanding. But even that verse, just like the hijab, that verse say Muhammad ascended. No Quran where Muhammad ascended anywhere. Because Muhammad did not bring prayer. Moses had prayer. Abraham had prayer. Jesus had prayer. Muhammad came, when Muhammad came, they were already prayer. They were fasting. They were pilgrimage. They were charity. Nothing new Muhammad brought. So for people to say Muhammad moved from Mecca all the way to Jerusalem and went to heaven, by the way, that went to heaven is Jibril who came, but he didn't even say Jerusalem or a thing. So no prophet, according to us, went to heaven. None. But the way they interpret it is that, Muhammad was raised there, met God, and negotiated with Moses. Moses said, that's too much, blah, blah, whatever. But if you go dig deep, what they call ascent, actually it was descent. Jibril is always...
Jibril the angel.
It's always Jibril who come to Muhammad, not Muhammad rise anywhere. But unfortunately, just like the hijab, they make it, same thing. The story is that Muhammad raised to heaven and where? From Mecca to Jerusalem, Masjid Aqsa. But Masjid Aqsa did not even exist. Masjid Aqsa was built to what? Over 70 years after his death. But a lot of people don't know. Because, again, we follow the narratives. And also, it makes a whole lot of sense for Muslims to tie Jerusalem to the Muslim world. Why? Because if you don't tie it, then how could you recruit Muslims to be pro-Palestine, anti-Israel? So you have to have a very strong connection to it. I'm not saying...
But the connection has been there for many years, before Palestine, before Israel, before everything, right? The connection of Muslims to Jerusalem, to Al-Aqsa.
Absolutely. No. That, by the way, that does not diminish the connection of Palestinians to the Holy Land. It does not diminish it. But it also does not prevent the state of Israel having legitimate right because of the connection, the historical, spiritual, whatever connection to it. And everything that I said is not. I'm a minority to it, but being minority doesn't mean it's not factual.
And I've heard you say, and I want to get this quote right because it's such a strong quote. You said, "Jews have every right to live in Israel as a sovereign nation in peace and security. It is also my hope that there will be, next to Israel, a Palestinian state whose leaders and people fully and sincerely share this vision of friendship and peace. This is a very, very strong statement, but it becomes extremely strong when it's given by a Muslim man and an Imam. Why is it so hard for many people, non-Jewish, Christian, Muslim, but especially Imams, to say something like that? What, Israel has a right to exist, and the Palestinians, together in peace, have a right to exist next to them. Why is that so hard?
Well, as of today, as I'm sitting here, there are 193 nations that are members of the United Nations. Among them, 57 nations belong to an organization called Organization of Islamic Cooperation, which consists of Muslim nations and nations that have significant Muslim presence or Muslim interests. But at least 43 of them are Muslim nations, completely Muslim majority nations. Among these 57 nations, 22 belong to the Arab League. Arabic culture, Arabic heritage, Arabic language, Arabic pride, Islamic religion, they're independent, and most of them thriving economically. Now, 193, 57, 22 spend 70, 80 years fighting one small tiny place called Israel that historically, that politically, that religiously, that spiritually can never ever be disconnected to the Jewish people. Nobody can do it. Now, no matter how much you are anti-Israel, you cannot honestly do it. It's not doable. Just like you want to detach the Chinese from China, Indians from India, African from Africa, you cannot do it. And that tiny nation is surrounded by enemies, some of whom want nothing more than to eliminate it forever and ever. And not only do they want it, not only do they pray for it, but they actually, actively working to making it happen. And that small nation is the only nation in the world where children as young as 4 or 5 years old, the first lesson being taught to them is to run to a bomb shelter for safety. In the year 2025, you have a nation that is legitimately positioned where it is, according to God, where its own children, I forget about the adults, its own children will be taught from day one how to run to a bomb shelter. And the people that oppose Israel and the people who are anti-Semites, they're enjoying their lives in nations and environments that will never tolerate such crimes against humanity. So for me as a Muslim, for me as a human being, for me as a fair-minded person, and for me who read Quran, which chapter 5, verses 20-21 tell me, the Holy Land, enter the Holy Land in which Allah assigned unto you. I cannot, sit idle. I cannot follow the ignorant anti-Semites. No matter what happened, I will have to speak up. If my speaking up costs me my liberty, my life, whatever, maybe that's the reason why I came to this world. But one thing I would never do is, I would never ever accept or be silent in the midst of anti-Semitism or anti-Israel. Even now, anti-Zionism, which I said, if you are anti-Zionist, that means you're definitely anti-Israel. And if you're anti-Israel, you have to be anti-Semite. Because you cannot tell me the whole nations in the world, you just pick one and then you're against it. Now let's talk about, people say genocide. Well, there are many things to talk about genocide. Number one, there's no genocide. Now there's a horrendous, violence taking place in the Holy Land on a daily basis. And there's a tremendous, violence that took place since October 7. Unacceptable. cannot be normalized, and nobody can justify it. That is a fact. However, we also have to know that the genesis of it is Hamas. And I listened to, a couple of days after October 7, I listened to one of Hamas leader was being interviewed on an Arab channel, and what he said was, this was a calculated move. We knew the price we pay because Israel has just elected the most right-wing government in the Israeli history.
Yeah.
The most right-wing. I mean, now all of a sudden now you give that right-wing government license to do what maybe some of them wanted to do but did not have the license, but now they have the license. So that's why when people were saying ceasefire, 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 I say you don't know what is going on. There will never ever be ceasefire as long as one Israeli is being held hostage. It's not going to happen because I know Israel. I go there, I know Israel, and I know I was in Israel November 2022. While I was there, even the military reserve said they're not gonna serve under Netanyahu. They said they were absolutely fighting liberals and conservatives, religious, secular, whatever. That was November 2022.
Yeah, that was the pro-democracy protest. I was part of them.
Okay.
In Israel.
And then I was there November 2023, a month after October 7. The people that were fighting to tear Israel down, guess what happened? They found themselves fighting for survival. Now they said now it's a matter of survival as a nation and survival as a people. Because why? Because not only Hamas did what Hamas did, but the global anti-Semite, anti-Israel community, Muslims and non-Muslims, whatever, Europeans or whatever, they did not differentiate Hamas from legitimate Palestinian cause. They just rally to support what was going on. I mean, how could you do that? I mean, how could you rally in support of so-called Palestinian issues without differentiating the heinous crime committed by some of the factions? So 2 days after October 7, in New York City, mayor's office, they convened a Zoom meeting with who's who in the Muslim leaders in New York. And they had the commissioners and leaders. This was 2 days after. And then we spoke for about 40 minutes. Not single Muslim leader, number one, condemned what happened. Number two, sends condolences. Number three, disassociate themselves with what's going on. So I said, no, I raised mine. I said, no, I have to speak. This is 2 days. They said 300 something people murdered already. And they said hundreds of people kidnapped. They didn't know the numbers. And we are Muslims. Now we don't condemn this. We don't send, condolences. Who are we? We have to now show who we are. We have to show our color. We should never ever be on the side of those who commit the crime. We can be the biggest pro-Palestinian group, but we have to differentiate.
What was the reaction in the room?
Oh, yeah. No. The reaction was usual because they know me. They realized it was like a silent at first. Because when you hit people with facts, even if they resisted, it would be later. But the fourth reaction is because we have God created us naturally to be good people. Therefore, whenever truth or goodness comes, it has some type of effect, even if you reject it, whatever. So there was a silence at first. Then there's a resumption of whatever. But they understood that I told the truth. They understood that this is what we need to do. If we don't do, and by the way, I predicted, I said, if we don't differentiate the legitimate pro-Palestinian cause and Hamas, it will be the worst of the worst. And I told them, I know what the government of Israel now. I know Netanyahu's people. I'm familiar with Israel. And Israel now has license. Netanyahu has license that he never ever had but always wanted. Netanyahu and the people around Netanyahu, like-minded, now Hamas give them license. And it will not going to be pretty. It's going to be worst of the worst. Look what happened now. So the mistake was the Muslim leaders should have come together and have a letter saying, we are Muslims. We don't support, we don't condone, we sympathize with Israelis. And then, this is our condolences and we'll work with the Israelis, whatever. And then end. Now, 2 days later, 3 days later, you know what Netanyahu will do. You know, Netanyahu will not spare a single stone after October 7. Because I was there and I see, you know, the number one, the scare, the concern, the embarrassment, the confusion of the Israelis. Because, Israelis, you're Israelis, they have self-confidence. They thought that even if the moon come, IDF will prevent it. That's the type of certainty they had. Then Hamas did that. They said, wait a minute. No, something is not right. So no, we are vulnerable. That vulnerability, they never thought that they were. They thought that they had it. And that was, you can read it from their faces, that they were concerned. What is next? And that told me Netanyahu got the license that he was praying for. And I said, anything related to October 7 will feel it like atom bomb. I saw it from day one, and I knew that Netanyahu will not spare. And I knew no United Nations, nothing will stop Netanyahu. I knew that. And then, I wrote a lot of pieces, circulated, if you check it. Everything I predicted came 100%. So October 7 was anti-Semitic move. This was not resistance. This was anti-Israel, anti-Semitic move. And this was one of the worst, if not the worst of the worst. And this was inflicted so that the end goal, which, by the way, the leader, Mr. Mashal, articulated, the end goal was to to continue to isolate Israel from the international, community. That was one of the goals. They knew that the price was going to be heavy. They knew Israel was going to come hard. They knew a lot of people will lose their lives and everything. And they knew that no place, whether it's a hospital or school, because, after October 7, you think Israel will say, oh, this is a hospital, or this is a school, this is a daycare. Israel know that the people who do it, they're not going to be in homes, and they're going to be where it's the most sensitive, where the global say, oh, you don't touch it. Everybody knew that. Everybody knew Hamas fighters will not be in vulnerable places. They have to be in hospitals with gowns and schools with uniform, whatever. And Israel knew that. And that's, for me, I knew what was coming. I was not surprised. For me, I knew what was coming. And I also knew that no place was sensitive, no place was sacred concerning IDF's operation. Because how would you get the bad guys? You think you're going to get the bad guys from different places? No, you get them from sensitive places, commingling with people. And because, Israel said, no, this is not going to happen again. And therefore, to end it, we'll go wherever we have to go. And that's exactly what happened. And ceasefire I knew was not going to happen. I knew 100% there will not be ceasefire while you have the hostages in the hands of Hamas. That's not going to happen.
It's 2025. America's debt is over $37 trillion, and the dollar just had its worst crash since 1973. That puts your savings and your family's future at risk. That's why we trust Alpha Omega Gold, a company that stands unapologetically with Israel and supports Stand Tall Israel. Visit ao.gold/stand to claim your free precious metals wayfinder guide or call 1-855-426-4653 today. Protect your future before it's too late.